The relentless grip of winter tightened its hold over the vast, desolate expanse of the Bering Strait. For weeks, an unusual cold front had swept through the region, transforming the typically turbulent waters into an unforgiving, ever-expanding sheet of ice. Deep within this frozen labyrinth, a pod of majestic orcas, their sleek black and white forms stark against the icy backdrop, found themselves in a perilous predicament. Led by Echo, a wise and seasoned matriarch with a lifetime of navigating these treacherous waters, the pod, consisting of 18 individuals, had been caught unawares by the swift formation of the ice. What began as a large, navigable stretch of water had rapidly dwindled to a shrinking pool, a suffocating trap from which escape seemed impossible. Among the younger members was Finn, a spirited 2-year-old calf, still reliant on his mother's guidance. His youthful curiosity was now replaced by an unsettling apprehension, as he sensed the growing distress of the adults around him. The once vibrant sounds of their clicks and whistles, their playful splashes, were now muted, replaced by the desperate, rhythmic thuds of their powerful tails and heads against the unyielding ice. Each attempt to break free was met with the same cold, unyielding resistance, and the collective exhalations, once strong and vibrant plumes of mist, now seemed like sorrowful, desperate sighs against the frigid air. The orcas, creatures of the open ocean, were suffocating in a frozen prison. The fear was palpable, a silent scream resonating through the frigid water. Hundreds of miles south, in a solitary weathered cabin nestled along the Alaskan coast, John, a man whose face was etched with the lines of a life lived close to the sea, listened intently to the crackling voice from his old shortwave radio. A fisherman for over 5 decades, John's ancestry was deeply rooted in the indigenous peoples of the region, carrying with him generations of reverence for the natural world. The news, delivered in a clipped, urgent tone, spoke of a large pod of orcas trapped by unprecedented ice formation in the Bering Strait. A cold dread settled in his stomach. He knew the capricious nature of the Arctic, how quickly life could be extinguished in its unforgiving embrace. His mind immediately conjured images of the magnificent creatures, their intelligence and grace, now facing a slow, agonizing death. He tried to contact the Coast Guard, the local wildlife agencies, anyone who could help. The responses were always the same, disheartening and resigned. The storms are too severe. Conditions are impossible for a rescue. The words echoed the hopelessness he felt, but something deeper stirred within him. His experience, his connection to the land and its creatures, told him that to do nothing was to condemn them. He spread out an ancient, tattered nautical map across his rough-hewn table, his gaze tracing the desolate lines of the strait. His eyes fell upon a series of old, disused ice fishing tools, reinforced and sturdy, remnants of a bygone era. A spark ignited. His only companion, Luna, a majestic Siberian husky with intelligent, knowing eyes, watched him intently, sensing the profound shift in his demeanor. The howl of the wind outside the cabin was a symphony of despair, but inside a quiet, resolute determination began to take root in John's heart. He knew the journey would be perilous, perhaps suicidal, but for him, the alternative was unthinkable. He had to try. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters. Remember, this is a fictional story. John's odyssey into the frozen heart of the Bering Strait began under a sky that was a canvas of bleak, unforgiving grey. His sled, a heavy-duty reinforced structure, cut a solitary path through the pristine, unbroken snow, pulled tirelessly by Luna, whose powerful legs churned rhythmically. The silence of the vast frozen landscape was broken only by the crunch of runners on snow and the steady rhythm of their breathing. Strapped securely to the sled were his instruments of hope, a powerful chainsaw, its teeth glinting menacingly even when dormant, a collection of heavy-duty axes and coils of thick, durable rope. These were rudimentary tools, relics of a past era of human-powered icebreaking, but they were all he had, and he trusted their brutal simplicity. The days blurred into a grueling sequence of endurance. Blinding blizzards descended without warning, transforming the landscape into a swirling vortex of white, forcing him to hunker down and wait out nature's fury. The wind, A relentless assailant lashed at his exposed skin, threatening to strip away the warmth from his bones. Sleep was a luxury he could ill afford, snatched in short, restless bursts, fueled by strong black coffee and the unwavering image of the trapped orcas. His every muscle ached, but a profound sense of urgency, a desperate plea from the depths of his soul, propelled him forward. Meanwhile, within the shrinking confines of their icy prison, the situation for the orcas had become truly desperate. Finn, the young calf, was visibly weakening, his breath shallow and his movements sluggish. Echo, the venerable matriarch, despite her own escalating exhaustion, maintained a stoic vigil. With every ounce of her remaining strength, she continued to create small, desperate ripples against the thin ice, a futile yet persistent effort to expand their dwindling breathing space. The once boisterous pod, now silent save for the desperate gasps for air, huddled together for warmth, their collective despair a tangible presence in the frigid air. The layer of ice, like an unforgiving lid, grew thicker with each passing minute, threatening to seal off their last remaining aperture to the world above. Some of the older orcas, their massive bodies shimmering with latent energy now sapped by the cold, showed alarming signs of hypothermia, their movements slowing, their spirits dimming. Hope, a precious commodity, was rapidly dissipating with each labored breath. On the third day of his relentless journey, just as the last vestiges of twilight began to paint the western sky, John's keen eyes spotted it, a dark, almost imperceptible smudge on the distant horizon. As he pushed Luna forward, his heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The smudge resolved into a horrifying yet undeniably beautiful spectacle. The orcas, their massive forms struggling in a small circular pool of open water, their breaths creating misty plumes in the biting air. The sight was even more heart-wrenching than he had imagined. Without a moment's hesitation, John began to unload his tools, his movements precise despite the biting cold and the bone-deep exhaustion. He pulled the starter cord of the chainsaw, and its guttural roar shattered the profound silence of the Arctic wilderness, a sound both jarring and strangely hopeful. He plunged the vibrating blade into the thick ice, beginning the arduous process of cutting large rectangular blocks of ice, one after another. It was a brutal, physically demanding task, requiring not just strength, but also a profound understanding of ice and its treacherous properties. Each cut sent a jarring vibration through his body, and the fracturing ice echoed like thunder across the frozen expanse, momentarily startling the trapped orcas. But John, his jaw set in grim determination, did not stop. The orcas, their primal instincts alerted by the unfamiliar sounds, watched the solitary human with a mixture of fear and profound curiosity. They had never witnessed a creature like him in such a desolate and hostile environment. As John continued his relentless work, slowly, painstakingly creating a narrow, winding channel, a fragile glimmer of hope began to illuminate the grim situation. Echo, the wise matriarch, sensing a subtle shift in the air, a faint whisper of intention from the strange figure, nudged Finn towards the newly opened path. It was an act of profound trust, a desperate gamble. The process was agonizingly slow. Each block removed a monumental effort, but with every piece of ice cleared, the possibility of survival, however remote, expanded. John worked without pause, his muscles screaming in protest, his hands growing numb with cold, but the vivid image of the struggling orcas, their silent pleas, fueled his unwavering resolve. He was their last chance. Don't miss the thrilling conclusion of this incredible rescue. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when the final chapter is released. This is a fictional story. The hours blurred into an eternity for John. His body, pushed beyond its physical limits, screamed for respite, every muscle a throbbing protest against the biting cold and relentless exertion. Yet, the image of the orcas, their breaths growing increasingly shallow, their collective energy rapidly dwindling, was a potent motivator, pushing him onward. He could see the profound exhaustion etched in Echo's ancient eyes, and Finn's once energetic movements were now distressingly sluggish, barely a ripple in the frigid water. The channel he was painstakingly carving through the formidable ice, though growing with each laborious cut, was still a daunting distance from the vast open expanse of the sea. Yet, it was more than nothing. It was a fragile lifeline, a sliver of hope in an otherwise frozen, desolate world. As he worked, the constant silent presence of Luna at his side was a profound comfort. She would occasionally nudge his hand with her wet nose, a quiet, empathetic gesture that spoke volumes. Then, a faint, rhythmic hum began to penetrate the profound silence of the Arctic. John, his heart leaping with a mixture of apprehension and renewed hope, squinted against the blinding glare of the sun on the ice. On the distant horizon, a dark, imposing silhouette slowly emerged, steadily growing larger. It was a sturdy icebreaker, its powerful engines churning through the frozen water, leaving a trail of shattered ice in its wake. His initial desperate calls to the authorities, though initially met with a wall of bureaucracy and meteorological skepticism, had finally broken through. The news of his audacious lone attempt, coupled with the worsening plight of the Orcas and the slight reprieve in the storms, had finally spurred them into action. A wave of profound relief, so potent it almost buckled his knees, washed over John. But he knew instinctively that the most critical part of the rescue, the delicate dance of guiding these massive creatures to freedom, was still ahead. With the formidable assistance of the icebreaker, the narrow, hand-cut channel rapidly widened into a true passageway. The cacophony of the icebreaker's immense engines, a thunderous roar that reverberated through the very ice beneath them, was initially terrifying for the trapped Orcas. Their instincts screamed danger. Yet, in an astonishing act of trust, an almost unbelievable leap of faith, Echo, the wise matriarch, began to slowly, cautiously guide her pod into the newly opened path. John, now on board the icebreaker, his breath catching in his throat, watched in awe as the Orcas, one by one, navigated the expanding passage. He could feel the deep, resonant vibrations of their colossal bodies as they passed directly beneath the vessel, a primal connection to their immense power and grace. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of anxiety and hope, the pod reached the blessed, churning expanse of the open waters. The relief that swept through every observer, both human and Orca, was almost unbearable in its intensity. The Orcas, liberated from their icy prison, responded with a magnificent display of their innate joy and power. They leaped and breached, their sleek bodies arching high above the waves, a triumphant celebration of their newfound freedom. Finn, visibly stronger now, his youthful energy restored, swam in exuberant circles around his mother, his spirit rekindled by the vastness of the sea. Before the massive icebreaker turned away, its mission accomplished, Echo, with a final majestic leap, turned her massive form towards John. For a long, silent moment, their eyes met across the churning water. It was a silent acknowledgement, a profound moment of connection between man and animal, a testament to the power of courage and compassion. John knew with an unwavering certainty that this day, forever etched in the stark beauty of the ice and the warmth of his memory, would forever bind him to these magnificent creatures. He had risked everything, defying logic and the elements, and in return, he had witnessed the profound power of hope and the extraordinary, indomitable resilience of life itself. Thank you for watching. When Orcas were trapped in ice and almost died, this hero came to save them. If you enjoyed this journey of bravery and connection, please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming and inspiring stories. Remember, this is a fictional story,